Something happened that you did not expect. You went quiet, and you felt better. Not a little better. Not the relief of a small break from the noise. Something deeper. Something that settled into your body before your mind had time to stop it. A kind of exhale you did not plan. A loosening across your chest. A moment where you looked at your phone and you did not feel the pull. You did not feel the dread of waiting. You felt something that, if you were being completely honest with yourself, resembled peace. And then, almost immediately, you felt something else. Fear. Not the fear of him not coming back. Not the fear of silence stretching too long. A different kind of fear. The kind that comes from recognizing something uncomfortable about yourself. The kind that makes you wonder if you wanted him to stop reaching out all along. The kind that makes you ask the question you do not want to ask. What does it mean that I feel better when he is not there? If you are the divine feminine in mid-separation and this is the week you are living inside right now, I need you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because what I am about to explain will change how you understand not just this connection, but yourself. If you are feeling this, leave a like and subscribe so this content keeps reaching you. And drop, I trust what the quiet is showing me in the comments. That phrase is not random. It is going to make sense by the end of this. Before we go any further, I want to talk about the personal readings that I am offering currently. If you are sitting in this exact confusion, wondering what the quiet means, wondering what your own reactions are telling you about where this connection actually stands, a personal reading pulls your birth chart and reads the specific energy around your twin flame union right now. Not general guidance, your chart, your timing, your soul contract. You can order yours right now. The link is in the description below. Okay, let's get back to the video. Here is what attachment theory tells us about this moment. And I want you to understand this clearly because most content about twin flames never goes here. Most content tells you what to do with your feelings. This is going to tell you where they came from. In an anxious, avoidant attachment dynamic, and most twin flame connections carry this structure, there is something that happens inside the person who tends toward anxious patterns. When the person they're attached to withdraws, two things happen. First, a wave of protest. The reaching, the checking, the emotional flooding, the way your system lights up trying to reestablish contact. This is the part people talk about. But the second thing almost nobody talks about. When the withdrawal continues long enough, when the silence stretches past a certain point, the anxious system does something that looks contradictory from the outside but makes complete sense from the inside. It deactivates, not permanently. Not because the attachment need is gone, but because the system cannot sustain protest indefinitely. It is not built for that. So it shifts. And when it shifts, there is relief. A genuine, embodied, physiological relief. This is what you felt this week. Your nervous system did what it was designed to do. It protected you from the unsustainable cost of sustained hyperactivation. It gave you a rest. And in that rest, something that felt uncomfortably like peace settled in. The fear comes in because of what you tell yourself that peace means. You tell yourself it means you do not love him as much as you thought. You tell yourself it means the connection is fading. You tell yourself it means something is wrong with you for not being in pain. You might even tell yourself, quietly, in the part of yourself you rarely visit, that you are finally free and that terrifies you more than any of the other possibilities. None of those interpretations are what is actually happening. What is actually happening is that your system got a break, and your system is showing you exactly how exhausted it has been. Let me take you into something deeper. Because there are actually two fears layered in this moment, and most women in this journey mistake the surface one for the real one. The surface fear is, what if the relief means the love is fading? The deeper fear, the one underneath, is, what if the love was always there, but so was something else? What if underneath everything she was feeling, underneath the longing and the devotion and the certainty, there was also a part of her that was exhausted by the activation, that found the quiet easier than the closeness? That is not a comfortable thing to discover about yourself. It challenges the story she has told about this connection. If part of her finds it easier when he is distant, what does that say about her readiness for union? What does that say about what she has been tolerating? What does that say about the version of love she was taught to recognize? Here's what it actually says. It says she is human. It says she has attachment wounds of her own, not just him. It says that somewhere in her relational history, consistent presence from someone she loved was not something she could count on. And so part of her nervous system learned to breathe in the spaces when people pulled away. Not because she did not want them. Because she had practice at absence. Because absence, in some ways, was familiar. And familiar even when painful registers as safe. Attachment theory calls this the anxious avoidant trap. Most people think it only lives in the person who runs, but it lives in both people. The divine feminine in this dynamic carries her own version of the avoidance. It does not look like his. It does not look like running. It looks like relief when the pressure lifts. It looks like the quiet feeling easier than the contact. It looks like the way she sometimes does not know what to do with herself when things are actually going well. This is not a flaw. This is a wound. And wounds, once seen clearly, become workable. Let her sit with the specific texture of this. The version of love she learned early was not a steady, available love. It may have been loving but inconsistent, present and then suddenly absent, warm one day and pulled back the next. And when you grow up inside that pattern, your nervous system stops expecting presence and starts managing absence. You get good at the gaps. You learn how to make meaning in the silence. You develop a particular kind of emotional strength that is actually, underneath the strength, a coping mechanism for not being consistently held. She brought that into this connection. And the connection, with its literal months of silence punctuated by moments of contact, confirmed everything her nervous system already knew. This is how love works. This is what love feels like. You wait, you hope, you feel pull, you get a moment of contact, and then you wait again. That is not twin flame love. That is her early attachment wound wearing the face of twin flame love. The two things can exist in the same experience. The connection can be genuinely sacred and also be activating her wound. Both are true. Holding both is what the spiritual work of this phase actually asks of her. The difference between a wound and a soul contract is this. A wound keeps you locked in a pattern. A soul contract asks you to evolve out of one. The twin flame connection is built to surface the wound so precisely that you cannot ignore it. The relief you felt this week is the wound surfacing, not in a way that hurts, in a way that shows you something you needed to see. She has been bracing for him. Every time things got close, there was a part of her anticipating the withdrawal. Not consciously, not as a thought, as a body posture, a subtle tensing around the heart, a readiness for things to contract again just when they started to expand. This is what happens when the nervous system has learned that closeness precedes loss. It begins to preempt the loss by never fully arriving into the closeness. That bracing is exhausting. Months of it are unsustainable. And what she felt this week, the exhale, was the body releasing the brace. Not because the love is gone, because the brace finally ran out of fuel. I want to pause here for a moment because something needs to be said. You have been in this journey for months, possibly years, and you are living through experiences like this one, recognizing things about yourself, having realizations at 3 a.m., feeling shifts you cannot name, and then watching them slip away in the current of daily life. You cannot remember what week the pattern shifted. You cannot remember when you stopped reaching first. You cannot remember what changed in your body 2 months ago that made you feel different than you do now. That is not a memory problem. That is a documentation problem. There is a twin flame journey tracker and progress workbook. 39 pages. It is not another ebook with general guidance. It is a tracking system. It has a stage tracker so you know where you actually are rather than guessing. It has a synchronicity log so those 11 moments and the unexpected dreams and the days his name comes up. 3 times before noon do not just vanish into the week. It has weekly reflections designed to help you catch the pattern you would miss otherwise. And it has monthly reviews so that 6 months from now, when someone asks you how you know you are growing, you can show them exactly where you were and exactly how far you have traveled. The question this workbook is designed to answer is the one you have probably asked yourself recently. Am I actually making progress, or am I just moving through cycles? Tracking does not create transformation, but tracking makes transformation visible. And when you can see your growth, you stop abandoning yourself in the hard weeks. The link is in the description. It is there when you need it. Now I want to bring you into something that is going to require you to sit with a little discomfort. If the activation was familiar and the relief feels like rest, then there is a version of this connection she has not yet experienced. She has experienced longing. She has experienced the electricity of contact after silence. She has experienced the way reunion feels different when it follows absence. But she has not yet experienced what it feels like to be consistently met. To have someone present not intermittently, not as relief from the anxiety of their absence, but just there, steady, available. The reason this matters is because part of her healing, a part that runs quietly alongside the work she does on longing and surrender, is learning to tolerate closeness without bracing for the withdrawal. Learning that presence does not have to be earned by surviving the distance. Learning that her nervous system can expand its window of tolerance wide enough to include someone staying. This is where earned secure attachment lives, not in learning to not care when he pulls away, but in learning that care does not require the highs and lows to be real. That love can be quieter than she was taught. That the version she has been waiting for is not the one at the end of the separation. It is the one she has been building inside herself this whole time. Differentiation theory, developed by David Schnarch and Murray Bowen, says something that cuts through a lot of spiritual noise. It says that the ability to stay yourself in proximity to someone you love without either merging into them or distancing from them is the actual measure of relational maturity. The divine feminine in late separation is learning this, not through theory. Through the lived texture of noticing her own reactions, the relief, the fear that follows the relief, the slow recognition that her peace does not mean her love is gone. It means she is becoming someone who can hold both. Love and groundedness, longing and self-possession, devotion and the capacity to breathe in the silence without losing herself. He is not separate from this. What happens inside him during this phase, when she begins to deactivate, when the pull from her side quiets, is not indifference registering on his end. It is something else entirely. The anxious-avoidant dynamic is a system. It is calibrated. When her protest energy drops, something in his system notices the change in pressure. The thread architecture of the avoidant attachment style is built on one central premise. If I get close enough to need her, I will lose her or I will be engulfed by her. The protest kept that premise active. It confirmed, in a strange and painful way, that she needed him more than he could handle. That kept the equilibrium. Uncomfortable, but stable. When she stops protesting, the equilibrium breaks, and the avoidance system does not have a comfortable response to that. It was designed for pursuit, not for quiet. It does not have a regulation protocol for the person it is attached to becoming less available. And so something shifts in him that he is not fully equipped to explain, even to himself. He starts noticing the absence of her pull. And absence, as she is learning this week, is its own kind of information. From a neuroscience angle, what he is experiencing is something like a baseline recalibration. His nervous system had been organizing itself in response to the known pattern. Her energy was a data point, even when it was painful, even when he was the one creating the distance. Her consistent wanting was something his system could orient to, and now the signal has changed. His nervous system is in the strange territory of not knowing what it is responding to. That is deeply uncomfortable for a regulated avoidant, and deeply uncomfortable for the divine masculine in mid to late separation, tends to produce movement, not necessarily the movement she imagined. Not a text at midnight with all the words she has wanted to hear, Maybe something smaller, a shift in his internal monologue. A moment where the story he has been telling himself about not being ready starts to feel less convincing. A moment where the logic of the distance stops making the sense it used to. This is what happens when the system loses its anchor. He was anchored to her pursuit. Her pursuit is quieting, and quietly, in the background of everything he is doing and saying and telling himself, something is becoming harder to ignore. There is an astrological note worth placing here. Venus came out of retrograde yesterday, June 4th, after weeks of backward motion through Taurus, reviewing what love costs, what connection is worth, what has been overvalued and undervalued in matters of the heart. Venus is now moving direct again. There is something fresh and forward-facing in the sky around love, not a dramatic announcement, more like the moment after a long-held breath finally releases, a quiet shift in direction. A beginning that does not announce itself loudly. That is exactly the energy of what you are moving through right now. The long retrograde of waiting, of holding, of reviewing, of questioning, and now something starting to move. Not because you forced it, because you survived it, because you stayed honest with yourself through the hardest part, because you let yourself feel the relief and then had the courage to ask what it meant. That is not nothing. That is everything. The divine feminine at the threshold does not look like what she expected. She thought it would look like certainty. She thought it would look like knowing, in some unshakable way, that he is coming back, and she just has to wait. But the threshold looks like this, like sitting with the relief that scared her, like understanding her own attachment patterns without using them as evidence against herself, like recognizing that the quiet this week is not emptiness, it is information. It is her system recalibrating. It is her finding the ground again. And from the ground, everything is clearer. So what does she actually do with this? Not with him, with herself, with this recognition. The first thing is to resist the urge to make it mean something definitive about the relationship. The relief is not a verdict. It does not mean the connection is over. It does not mean she should move on. It does not mean she should reach out to see if she still feels something when he responds. The relief is data about her nervous system, not a verdict about the connection. Keep those two things separate. The second thing is to let the rest be rest. Do not panic your system back into activation by manufacturing urgency. Do not start checking his social media to get the pull back. Do not text him to confirm he still exists. The deactivation is doing something. It is healing something in her that the activation was never going to heal. Let it complete. The third thing, and this is the one that requires the most from her, is to begin practicing what earned secure attachment actually feels like in her relationship with herself. Not in theory, in her daily life. This looks like noticing when she is bracing and consciously releasing the brace. It looks like letting good things be good without waiting for them to contract. It looks like making a decision and staying with it instead of scanning for signs that she made the wrong choice. Small practices, but they are building the nervous system architecture that a union, a real sustained union, requires. Because here is what she has not yet fully metabolized. He cannot stay with a version of her who cannot stay with herself. The connection mirrors. If her nervous system is organized around protest and brace and relief and protest again, the dynamic will continue to reflect that. The path to union does not run through getting him to change first. It runs through her becoming someone who is genuinely, physiologically, not performing calm, but actually regulated in a way that the system can meet. That is what is being built right now. In the exhale, in the quiet, in the strange, uncomfortable peace of a week where you felt better than you expected to feel. What she felt this week, the exhale she did not plan, the peace she did not expect, the fear that followed both. That is not a sign that she is losing the connection. That is a sign that she is changing her relationship to it. That she is no longer organizing her inner life around his movements. That she is beginning in the most real and unperformed way to become someone who does not need the activation to feel the love. That is the version of her he has never met, and the sky, after a long season of review, just started moving again. Stay with what the quiet is showing you. It is telling the truth.